going to be tying up a bird's nest rusty emerger pattern here. I've got a size 16 hook in the vise, just kind of that curved nymph hook. You can fish this as an emerger. You can fish it also as a wet fly. It's a unique pattern, especially in how it's tied, and it's a good looking pattern as well, fishes well. So we're going to start just by securing that nano silk here on the front of the fly, and then I'm just going to move that up until it's about 1 to 2 eye lengths away from the eye of the hook. So the first material we're going to be working with is going to be a wood duck flank feather here. And we'll just go ahead and turn that sideways a little bit, and we're going to pull off on either side of that the bottom kind of fuzzier pieces, so that we're just left with the stem. And it doesn't matter if those are there. That's just me being OCD and wanting to not have them there. With that, we're left with the wood duck feather here. I'm going to grab this right by the tip, and kind of like with this, what we do with the soft hackle, I'm going to strip some of these fibers backwards. You know, so we have something about like that. You can see the tip is now on its own, sticking out here. We're going to use that for the tail on the fly. We're not going to use it for a minute though. So for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off. Then I can just set it aside for future use. And look at that, my wood duck was just nice enough that it decided I'm just going to rest on the vise. I'm not going to fall on the ground, which usually is what happens when I'm tying. So anyway, I'm going to take this. You can see we've got the tip removed out of the flank feather here. I'll just kind of line up those a little bit, not too much, because you're going to see right now we're just going to go ahead and kind of fold that over and scrunch it up. Just about like that. And I want to keep this about the length of the shaft of the hook. So I'm going to kind of take my measurements here like that, and then I'm going to transfer that measurement up towards the front of the hook here. We'll just go ahead and secure this wood duck down. If it spins around, that's fine, because we're actually wanting that. We're going to kind of emphasize that a little bit here in a moment. And if it feels like it's too short, unwind and start all over again. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to take a few thread wraps backwards. I'm going to grab my scissors. We're just going to hold this wood duck, the balance of the wood duck, at a pretty shallow angle here, so that we can clip it off and have a good taper to it when we clip it off. Then I can get rid of that end there. No, we'll just go ahead and keep moving back a little bit, secure the rest of that feather to the shank of our hook here, and we will go to some brassie size copper wire. We're going to be using this for some ribbing, so I'm going to go ahead and tie this in on my side of the hook, and I'm going to draw it backwards. I want some taper to this, but we're going to have some pretty thick dubbing on it, so I'm not overly concerned, but I am going to let the thread kind of carry this copper over to the lens side of the hook. I'm just going to bring that back to about where the barb is. As always, before I would fish this, I would mash that barb down. Now with our wire in place, I'm going to reach back and grab that tip that we cut out just a moment ago, and that's going to become the tail on our fly. I'm going to want that kind of short, so I'm going to keep that to 1/2 to 3/4 of the shank of the length of the shank of the hook there. Take that measurement backwards. I'll take a look at it. I want that a little bit longer, but not a lot. And then I'm just going to go ahead. Sometimes I like to just keep hold of it like that. It just helps me ensure I keep those fibers on the top of the shank of the hook. And we're just going to wrap those back to where we're going to start our dubbing in our abdomen. And with that, I'll reach in and just grab my scissors and we'll cut off the balance here. For dubbing, I'm just going to use some Awesome Possum. And the rusty brown that's kind of showing right here is the color that we're going to be using here. And I'm just going to take out a small bunch of that. And after I get the dubbing removed, I'll mix it in my fingers here like this, but I'm not really mixing it. What I'm doing is trying to just get the fibers to all be aligned as much as I possibly can. And then I'm going to kind of muck around with it in my fingers, because kind of what I want is I want it to be kind of thinner at the top and thicker at the bottom. I've got way too much here, but that's okay. We'll remove it as we get to that point. Give myself a little thread and we'll just start finger dubbing that material onto our thread. Got a great big bunch of it at the end, so for sure we are going to be removing some of this. We'll take our thread back. Let's make sure we get one really good thread wrap with the dubbing around the tail, and then we'll just start working our way forward. And take some overlapping wraps if you need to. I just continue to reach in and tighten my dubbing a little bit. By going back and over wrapping, it's just going to help us get the taper that we're looking for. You can see this embarrassing amount of dubbing that I've got on. So you can see, hopefully, we're building a ever so slight taper here. And I just want to take that back to right about behind that Woodduck wing that's hanging out over the eye. I've got a mess because I put too much dubbing on, but that's okay. We'll just come in with our scissors. With that done, let's go ahead and take our copper wire. I'm going to take some fairly open wraps, creating a ribbing through this dubbing. Try to keep them evenly spaced if you can. Sometimes I'm decent at that and sometimes I'm not. I'm going to just take that right up to where I want the abdomen to stop, which is going to be right about there. And I'm just going to take a couple of wraps over the top of that copper wire, and then go ahead and we'll just use our helicopter friction method to break that off. So now we're going to redirect our attention back to the front of the fly. If you've got a bodkin, typically they'll have a hollowed out point like you can see here, and we're actually going to take advantage of that. We're going to put that right over the eye of the hook here and push those Woodduck fibers backwards, presuming I can get it where it needs to go, and give it a little bit of a spin, because we're perfectly good with having these fibers kind of going all the way around the shank of the hook here. So from here, I'm just going to grab some kind of yellowish beaver dubbing. Once again, we're just going to finger dub this on. I'm going to want this thorax to be a little thicker towards the back and thinner as we move up towards the eye of the hook. And you see I'm just kind of tightening that dubbing as I kind of go along here. Not overly worried about this one having any sort of pronounced head per se. I'm just going to stroke everything back, including some of those guard hairs that are there. And go ahead and kind of clean up the front. With that, I'm just going to turn to my whip finisher. We'll whip finish. I'll do my OCD cleaning, because I will want to clean this up just a hair, but not a lot. Doesn't need to be a pronounced head by any means. So with that, we're pretty much done with the fly, other than, like I said, we'll do a little bit of cleanup. And with that, we're done. Again, the bird's nest, sulfur emerger. Fish this as an emerging pattern, or obviously you can also fish it as a wet fly. Really fun pattern to tie, a really nice looking pattern, not a lot of materials involved. Grab yourself a hook, throw it in your vise, and give it a go.